For decades, Canada has opened its doors to the world, and millions of immigrants have made this nation home. A short drive through Toronto, and you'll see several distinct communities. You'll also find a myriad of churches, from Middle Eastern to Asian to South American, churches of every language and culture. For immigrants of faith, a church community like this is significant to their new life in Canada, and more than just a venue to share common beliefs.
Many very practically provide English as second language classes. And
Professor Daniel Wong is third-generation Chinese American. Having pastored in Canada for more than a decade, he's seen how ethnic churches are places where new immigrants can be themselves.
Especially for our spiritual lives, it's our heart language. And so to have that opportunity to express the word that we've memorized in our heart language, or we could be free to express.
While there's no doubt ethnic churches have been safe havens, as the children of immigrants get older, leaders are becoming aware of a new phenomenon, something dubbed the silent exodus. The term first emerged in the early 90s as Korean churches in America saw waves of second-generation youth leave the pews. But slowly, it's describing some churches in Canada as the gap grows between the first and second generation of immigrant families.
There was a big gap of the 20-something to the 30-something that was not there. They're gone. The parents are there, but that generation is gone.
I sat down with a mix of young immigrants and second-generation Canadians, Lucy, Ira, Marcel, Priven, and Niven, and heard their perspectives.
Our church was also our community. So there was a lot of, it wasn't just a place where we went for prayer or worship, it was also like a large social component.
Feeling at home at a particular congregation culturally can just be that bridge that helps people to understand, hey, I could be a Christian without giving up my ethnicity.
It was the church that took us in and showed us, where do you live? How do you get jobs here? How do you, just to better help understand the system, the Canadian system. And church was family.
But as we talked, they also identified a number of common struggles.
When you're young, you go to church, it's fun. But then as you're forming your identity, there's conflicts. Like you have Canadian values and you have Korean values, but you have both and you're somewhere in between.
What you're moving towards is more multicultural as opposed to parents trying to preserve something that is very ethnocentric. We don't want to lose our identity because our whole life is really wrapped up in this. And this is really a part of what it means to be either Korean or Chinese, a black person, an East Indian.
Holding on to their identity, but also there's like a sense of them wanting to protect because that's what they know, that's what's familiar to them.
And then you have the youth who want to do something else, who want to fit in within the church rules and be a part of the church, but there isn't any space there for them.
Sometimes you have the English congregation, they'll call it. But the English congregation never gets full status. They're just looked at as, oh, these are just the youth. Or these are just the young adults. So
Yes.
they never
So
have that
true.
equal voice.
And then you start to wonder, now who's right here? And are my parents right? Is this a Christian thing or is it a Korean thing?
For various reasons, each person on this panel chose different paths. Lucy, who grew up in a Korean church in Vancouver, now attends a multicultural one. Ira is in the process of planting an intercultural church in Toronto. Niven still attends an Indo-Guyanese church, Priven goes to a predominantly Caribbean church, and Marcel is part of this one. This is St. Maurice and St. Verena Coptic Orthodox Church. Although the word Coptic directly refers to the Egyptian culture, this church isn't staying within that definition.
We will be studying.
The liturgy is in English. There are deacons from a variety of backgrounds, and the church is focused on reaching the surrounding community.
My experience living in a multicultural society, all people of all different races and tongues and languages are in harmony together. And I have this holy jealousy in my heart, why can't my church be the same way? If heaven is going to be like this, why can't we have a church here on earth where we can celebrate our commonalities as well as our differences as long as they are all in Christ? We spoke about the Holy Trinity.
Father Bishoy Salema is priest and visionary of St. Maurice and St. Verena, birthed out of another Coptic church in Toronto. He became especially motivated to establish the new congregation when he began to see first signs of a silent exodus.
I was starting to notice that many of our young adults were getting introduced to people from the general community, the general culture. They went to school with them, they worked together, they played sports together, and only inside the church they were separated. So as people got married or got engaged, again they felt alienated a little bit. So there was always this continuous struggle that I felt the second generation immigrants were going through, that were separating them from the church community.
And so in November 2007, this church began meeting in an elementary school gym and became the first Coptic congregation of its kind in North America.
Everybody is so loving, so open and welcoming.
I had, to be honest with you, I didn't mention this before, but prayed to God to give me some Christian friends, and I felt that was an answer to prayer.
It's in English, and with all the words up on the screen, it's easy to understand.
We feel that the ministry here is fulfilling a point we missed for a long time, which is going to out of the community, out of the Egyptian community.
When you come in here and you see all the many different races and cultures, and it just enriches it.
It doesn't matter how you look, who you are, what your socioeconomic class is, none of that. If you have 6 earrings in your ear, none of that. This is a place where you're going to be loved.
While Father Bishoy doesn't believe every church needs to create a new congregation, he does say they need to weigh the needs of the second and third generation.
Practically speaking, someone has to sacrifice. It's either going to be the second, third generation or the first generation. If we expect the second generation to sacrifice, we might end up losing so many of them.
While these are difficult ideas for any church to toil through, Father Bishoy says it's the way they'll remain vibrant and inviting to future generations. In Toronto, I'm Sherien Barsoum for 100 Hunley Street.